First, I also would like to take this opportunity to thank the University of Vienna and the Zada Foundation, and also people who are involved, principally, Professor Matthias, and whoever, I don't know all the names, but those who are involved in arranging this symposium. And I sincerely thank everybody for making this possible. So my paper is quite long, so I won't be able to read all of it. So what I'm going to do is just skip many of them and just go right to the core of the paper. I don't have any PowerPoint or anything like that, just reading a paper. Hope this is okay. My paper will revisit Sakyapa scholar Gorampa Sonam Singye's refutation of the Jonangpa position on Buddha nature as expounded by Dolpo Shirab Gyaltsen. I will be presenting this refutation mainly based on Gorampa's text. The Gorampa wrote a text which is actually on Domsum. It's called Supplement to the Three Vows. And in that text, actually, there are 3 chapters. The first chapter is on base, and the second chapter is on 3 vows, and the third chapter is on the kayas. So my presentation of this refutation of Jonangpa is drawn all of them from the first chapter. So that first chapter is on the base, that's the Buddha nature. So going right to the refutation of it. So Gorampa identified Dolpopa as representing the Jonangpa school. Dolpopa, known as the great omniscient one of Jonang, came from Dolpo in present-day Nepal, of course. And usually, Tibetan scholars do not identify their opponent, but in this case, he was very clear. And then also, he summarizes the Jonangpa, the Dolpopa's ideas or understanding of the Buddha nature. So he says, in the Richik Ngöden Gyatso, Dolpopa asserted that there are 2 emptinesses. Emptiness of, in other words, Rangtong and Shentong. And there are 2 truths, conventional truth and ultimate truth. And there are 3 natures of the things. That is the imputed nature, dependent nature, and thoroughly established nature, right? So imputed nature and the dependent nature are conventional truth. And the conventional truth is empty of self because, or the Rangtong, because it does not have any inherent existence. It is like dream and illusion. So Dolpopa calls this emptiness of self a nihilistic emptiness, emptiness of matter, an inferior emptiness. It is not a pure emptiness, that is the ultimate truth. In the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the statement, starting from form to the omniscient wisdom of Buddha, all are empty of self, refers to the conventional truth. Nagarjuna also mainly talked about the emptiness of self in his writings on Madhyamika philosophy. According to the Jonangpa, these sutras and shastras do not demonstrate the complete ultimate truth. The Prajnaparamita Sutra's statement, starting from form to the omniscient wisdom of the Buddha, all are empty of self, refers to imputed nature. And the example, these are like dreams and illusion, refers to dependent nature. The absolutely does not mean that thoroughly established nature or the Nishpana is false and does not exist. To prove this, Dolpopa quoted from Dignaga's Ashta Sahasrika the words such as not exist negate all parikalpita. The example, like illusion, etc., refers to Paratantra. After teaching 4 purities, Parinishpana is taught. Parinishpana, the ultimate truth, is empty of the other or the Shentong because it is devoid of composite things that have Parikalpita and Paratantra nature. The emptiness of other is pure, or the Shentong is pure, unerring ultimate truth, Dharmakaya and Tathāgata. This ultimate truth primordially possesses all the excellent qualities of the Buddha, such as power, fearlessness, and the major and minor marks. To prove their point, Jonangpa used the example of the Trisahasrapatha, or world found in the Avatamsara Sutra, and the 9 metaphors found in the Tathāgatagarbha Sutra. They also claim that this notion is clearly expounded in the Mahabheri Sutra and many other sutras, like including Sri Maladevi Sutra, Ratnakuta Sutra, and Mahaparinirvana Sutra, and so forth. It has been set forth in detail in the Uttaratantra of Maitreya and its commentary, where the intention of the last turning of the wheel of Dharma is explained. Furthermore, this notion explained in the treatises by Asanga and his brother Vasubandhu, as well as in the collection of praises of Nagarjuna. Since conventional truth, Parikalpita and Paratantra are empty of self and do not ultimately exist from the beginning, the conventional truth is free from the extreme of eternalism. Dharmata, the Parinishpana, has never been non-existent from the beginningless time. It is truth and permanent. Hence, it is free of the extreme of nihilism. Therefore, the emptiness of the other is the great middle way, or the Umachempo, free from both extremes. Because of the numerous reasons given above, the Jonangpa tradition is the essence of the Buddha's teaching, Jonangpa claims. Now, next is Gorampa also has the way of positioning Jonangpa. Where does he want to put Jonangpa? So now this, he goes into like explaining how Rendava feels about Jonangpa. So a Sakyapa scholar, Rendava Shunulode, said that the Jonangpa school is absolutely not a Buddhist school. He argued that the theory of Shentong, as they call the Great Middle Way, is not the meaning of any Hinayana or Mahayana Sutra. It is contradictory to 4 schools or 4 Buddhist schools, Vaibhashika, Sautendrika, Cittamadhara, and Madhyamika. Also, it does not reflect the meaning of any great Indian and Tibetan scholar. Rendava goes on to say that this system is not within the Buddhist tradition because of the following. The Vaibhashikas and Sautendrika school posit an emptiness which is merely devoid of personal self or Pudgala Atman, but they accept the existence of mere aggregates. And these aggregates are impermanent, suffering, empty, and selfless in nature. These 2 schools never accept an emptiness that is characterized by permanence and changelessness, etc. Thus, Rendava firmly established that the Jonangpa tradition does not convey the meaning of Hinayana sutras. In reference to Mahayana, Nagarjuna talks about 2 emptinesses. 1, emptiness established by logical reasoning, and the 2, emptiness realized by meditators through self-awareness. The emptiness established by reasoning has 2 parts. A, the emptiness of personal self, and B, the emptiness of phenomenal self. The first one is devoid of the self of person as the enjoyer of objects. Ordinary people or non-Buddhists superimpose this self on the basis of aggregates, the sensory spheres or dhatus, and the sources of perception or the ayatanas, although they are established as mere phenomena. The emptiness of phenomenal self is an establishment of merely illusory interdependent causation through negating the superimposition of Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike, such as the outer and inner sensory spheres and sources of perception being permanent, impermanent, arising, non-arising. These two emptinesses are called nominal ultimate because they are established through the knowledge of listening and contemplation. The emptiness which yogins individually realize is an inexpressible one. It is an object beyond all other objects. This emptiness, or the Dhammata, is also the nature of illusory interdependent causation. Beside these three emptinesses, Nagarjuna never asserted that any emptiness ultimately exists, although it is still emptiness because it is devoid of conventional identities. No matter how much the Jonangpas try to prove that Nagarjuna taught the emptiness of other, they will never find a single passage in Nagarjuna's treatises indicating the emptiness of other, or the Shentong. In the Mulamadhyamika Karika, he says, if there were even a triple non-empty, then triple emptiness would exist. However, since there's not even a triple that is non-empty, how could emptiness be existent? The Jonangpas respond by saying that in Nagarjuna's 6 treatises on the Madhyamika, he has only taught the emptiness of self, of the Rangtong, but in his writings of praises, or the Töso, the emptiness of others, the ultimate truth, has been taught. Rendava denied this as well by saying that even in Nagarjuna's writings of praises, there's not a single word indicating that there is something that truly or that ultimately exists. Rather, in his writings of praises, Nagarjuna rejects all extremes, such as he does in the treatises of Madhyamika. Therefore, the Jonangpa tradition does not represent Nagarjuna's tradition, Rendava concluded. Rendava further says that the 3 different kinds of emptiness appear in Asanga and Vasubandhu's work. A, emptiness of own character, Rangi Senyi Tongpa, right? Tongpa. B, emptiness of not being or non-existing, Yopa Mayimpa Tongpa, Yopa Mayimpa Tongpa. And then C, emptiness of its own, Rangshinki Tongpa. The first one is the Parikalpita, the second one is Paratantara, and the third one is Parinishpana. Of these 3, the Paratantara is established by its own character. The Paratantara, being devoid of Parikalpita, is the Parinishpana that ultimately exists. This is the middle path because it is free from the 2 extremes of eternalism and nihilism. Thus, it is said in the Madhyanta Vivanga. The imagination of what is unreal exists. In this imagination, duality does not exist. In it, however, emptiness exists, and in this emptiness, this imagination exists. It is said that nothing is empty and nothing is non-empty. Because of the existence of the imagination, the non-existence of duality and existence of emptiness in the imagination. This is the middle path. Madhyanta Vivanga says that. The Jonangpa's theory of ultimate existing Parinishpana, which is devoid of Parikalpita and Paratantara, is discordant with Asanga and Vasubandhu's views because the Jonangpas asserted that Paratantara also does not exist as Parikalpita. But in the treatises of the 2 brothers, Paratantara does not ultimately exist, like the object of the magician's magic show. Therefore, the Jonangpa tradition is neither the mind-only school nor the Madhyamika school. Rendava refutes the theory of the Jonangpa tradition in this way. In analyzing Rendava's criticism of the Jonangpa tradition, Gorampa says that it is too harsh to conclude that the Jonangpa tradition is a non-Buddhist school or non-Buddhist tradition because it accords with neither the Hinayana nor the Mahayana school. In fact, Gorampa maintains the Jonangpa tradition is superior to other realist or the Ngopo Yoparmawa schools, and actually leads one to a point where one effortlessly understands the Madhyamika view. Because except for Parinishpana, the Jonangpa does establish that ultimately all phenomena do not exist. The Jonangpa also accepts sutras related to the last teachings of the Buddha, Maitreya's texts and what Asanga and Vasubandhu interpreted as the definitive meaning. To prove that the Jonangpa tradition is not the mind-only school, Randhawa uses his reasoning. Jonangpa does not assert Paratantara being an ultimately existent phenomena. So Gorampa replies that this is an invalid logic because Paratantara has been explained as an ultimately existent phenomena in many texts of the mind-only or the Chittamatini school. If a person belonging to the mind-only school studies the Madhyamika view, then he will at first accept the Paratantara is actually devoid of ultimate existence, but some residual insistence on the ultimate existence of Parinishpana will remain. Just accepting what has been explained, having not only a common locus, Paratantara, but also accepting non-existent phenomena does not make one non-Chittamatiri. Otherwise, the false aspect mind-only school is no longer one of the mind-only schools because the aspect which is the basis of debate between the two mind-only schools, the true aspect mind-only school and the false aspect mind-only school is questionably Paratantara. And the false aspect mind-only school does not accept this aspect as ultimately existent phenomena. Thus, Gorampa maintains that if one wants to say that this aspect is not Paratantara, but rather is Parikalpita, then it is absolutely wrong to say that false aspect mind-only school accepts it to be ultimately existent phenomena, because the mind-only school does not accept the existence of Parikalpita. If one wonders where does this particular tradition belong, meaning Jonangpa tradition belong, Gorampa quotes one of his teachers, Rongdun Shechakuri, who says that Jonangpa tradition is the best mind-only school, or it is almost on a par with the Madhyamika school. Gorampa proves Rongdun's statement to be correct with several logical reasons. Number one, the Jonangpa tradition was able to establish Paratantara being devoid of ultimate existence with only some residual insistence on the ultimate existence of Parinishpana. Number two, the Jonangpa tradition has taken a literal interpretation of the Sandhi Nirumachana Sutra. Number three, the Jonangpa tradition identifies Asanga, Vasubandhu, Dignaga, and Dharmakirti as the great Madhyamikas and accepts the works of these scholars as its tradition. And number four, the Jonangpa tradition bases its interpretation of scriptures on the three characteristics, namely Parikalpita, Paratantara, and Parinishpana. Some followers of the Jonangpa school say that their school is not the mind-only school because the mind-only school is not only one of the substantialist schools, but also accepts a common locus of things and ultimate existence. However, the Jonangpa believes that as long as being is something, it is devoid of ultimate existence. Except for these insignificant points, there is ultimately no difference between what the Jonangpa followers say and what the mind-only school accepts, because Jonangpa also accepts a common locus, shitun, of mind and ultimate existence. If one claims that the Jonangpa school is the Madhyamika school because it accepts Nagarjuna's works as valid and authoritative treatises, one has not proved the case at all. Being incapable of refuting Nagarjuna's writings, the Jonangpas interpreted them willy-nilly and attached them to their theory at random. In fact, their theory of the emptiness of other or the Shentong is certainly not Nagarjuna's meaning. In the Madhyamika Karika, Nagarjuna says, there is no composition because birth, dissolution, and abiding could not be established. Since composition could not be established, how could non-composition be established? Again, the followers of the Jonangpa say that this objection does not hold true because of the above passage and also one in the Bigraphia Vartani. If I have any thesis or argument, I will have this fall. Nevertheless, since I don't have a thesis, I'm indeed faultless. According to the Jonangpas, these two verses were set forth in terms of meditative equipoise, not in terms of the post-meditative discursive analysis. The meaning in terms of meditative equipoise is that a noble Arya meditator in his meditative equipoise does not see composite and non-composite things as truly existent. They are not apprehended as any of the four extremes of existence. Therefore, this is the way uncontaminated minds grasp ultimate reality. Post-meditation and analysis means that when one investigates the reality of an object, one determines whether it truly exists or not truly exists. According to Gorampa, this position of the Jonangpa is absolutely wrong. If the reference to the non-composite thing is made in the context of meditative equipoise, then the statement, non-existence of composite things, must also be made in that context. If this is so, then it would be pointless to refute arising, abiding, and dissolution through analysis. Therefore, these verses must be referring to post-meditative analysis. Returning to the Domsum Khakong, the Jonangpa demonstrated the basis, the path, and the result in the following way. First, the basis. The Jonangpas assert that if one divides all knowable phenomena into two truths and three defining characteristics of Parikalpita, Paratantra, then Parikalpita and Paratantra are conventional because they are not established as truly existing things. But the Parinishpana is the ultimate truth and it is established as a truly existing phenomenon. Buddha nature exists in all sentient beings' mental continua because the ultimate dharmata of all phenomena has no distinction of being awakened Buddha, but sentient beings are not Buddha. Now, that's the basis, the resolve. Regarding the achievement of resolve, the Jonangpa assert that from beginningless time, the existing self-born ultimate Dharmakaya does not need to be obtained by means of gathering the two accumulations. They maintain that through the gathering of the two conventional accumulations, one obtains the conventional Rupakaya. Okay, then the Jonangpas, they claim that their assertion to be in accord with the sutras and shastras. So then, many sutras they mentioned, the Jonangpa said that the notion explained about is the ultimate significance of the 10 sutras of definite meaning, such as Samdhi Nirvachana Sutra, Nirvana Sutra, and Tathāgatagarbha Sutra, Anguli Mala Sutra, and Lanka Avatara Sutra, and so forth. And also, this is also the meaning of the 5 treatises of Maitreya, as well as the Asanga brothers' writings, such as the 5 Bhumi, the 2 collections, and the 8 Prakaranas. Dignaga's summary of the 8,000 verses of Panchaparamita Sutra and 7 treatises of Dharma Kirti. These are all in agreement with what was discussed about, because their system is the system of the great Madhyamika, the Jonangpa said. So Nagarjuna Aryadeva also accept this position, and this is the one and the only meaning of all the performed tantras as well, the Jonangpa said. Okay? So now the Gorampa's own refutation. There are 2 parts to the investigation of this unique presentation of the Jonangpas. Number 1, investigation with the scriptures and logical reasoning without partiality. And number 2, providing an explanation of why investigation is done. As for the first, the presentation given by the Jonangpa is to be investigated with scripture citations, logical reasonings, without partiality, because this is the object for scholars to refute and defend. The second part has 2 sections. Number 1, adopting what is agreeable, and number 2, demonstrating the rest in contradiction to both the conventional and ultimate truth. As for the first, the notion is that the sphere of reality, or the dharmata, has no difference of good and or bad in terms of both basis and result in relation to Buddha nature. Being Buddha nature, the ultimate Buddha endowed with all naturally pure and spontaneously arisen qualities such as strength, is not to be refuted, because Gorampa also accepts this notion as it is the intention of Mahayana Sutra and Tantras. As for the second, demonstrating the rest in contradiction to both the conventional and ultimate truth, is that Dharmata is a truly established one, is to be refuted because, as it will be shown below, this is perceived to be contradictory with both the conventional and ultimate truth. The Jonangpa's assertion, when a certain meaning of the scripture is explained by means of convention, the impure sphere of reality is Buddha, is in contradiction to conventional truth, because if this is the case, it would mean there's no distinction of inferiority, equality, etc. on the conventional level. But the reality is that on the conventional level, one has to speak of having distinguished superiority, inferiority, equality, birth and dissolution, etc. So then response, the sequence of the four, now it's talking about the contradicting with the four reliances, right? The response, the sequence of the four reliances is not like that. Having accepted the convention first, one eventually enters the ultimate reality later. If the convention is rejected from the beginning, then it is useless to teach convention for the purpose of understanding ultimate reality. Also, you would incorrectly reverse the sequence of the four reliances. Okay, then now Jonangpa. Jonangpa says, we do not have the fault of abandoning the convention, because even on the conventional level, we accept the impure sphere of reality as Buddha, they argue. Further, Gorampa said, accepting the impure sphere of reality as the Buddha contradicts the treatises of Maitreya and Nagarjuna. To explain how this contradicts these treatises, then Gorampa quotes from Uttara Tantra of Maitreya and many other quotations. Okay. I think I don't have time to go through all of it. Let's see. So he's pointing out, like the Jonangpa contradicts with the intent of Sutra, Tantra, and also sequence of the turning the wheel of Dharma, and so forth and so on. Now, this one, the illustrating the reason of investigation without bias. So, Gorampa said that he had tremendous faith in the great people of Jonang, who were the upholders of the Kalachakra tradition and who have perfected the inner realization. However, the investigation he had undertaken in relation to the Jonangpa's tenet was done with scripture and logic and was not motivated by desire, anger, or ignorance. This investigation is done to refute an extreme grasping of eternalism in order to establish the ultimate view as free from the four extremes. Therefore, Gorampa asks those impartial scholars to take his investigation faithfully, because he says, having thought of benefiting the teachings of the Buddha and sentient beings, his advice of distinguishing what it is to be and not to be came from his heart. Then, essence of the important points in brief. In brief, Buddha nature is the unity of clarity and emptiness, because the mind comprises all phenomena of samsara and nirvana, and the mind itself is empty of true existence and free from the four extremes. Therefore, from beginningless time, Buddha nature is the unity of clarity and emptiness, which is the ultimate nature of the way things really are. If Buddha nature is put together, it is the nature of one's own mind that is clarity, its unceasing luster is everywhere, free from utterance through sound and perception, and free from elaboration. This unity should be understood as Buddha nature, because this is the ultimate mode of the basis. So I rest here then.
Thank you very much, Khenpo. Finally, we got a round position in the head of the Tathāgatagarbha, which was like a long view in the Jonangpa position. There are two questions I have. One with regard to the ontological status of Paratantra. Tsongkhapa, he distinguishes, he noticed, first of all, that some passages say Paratantra is relative and sometimes it's taken to be ultimate. And so he distinguishes, ontological from epistemological, descriptions of the Paratantra. In one case, it's ultimate; in the other, it's relative. I mean, that's one question whether Gorampa or Rendava have a similar, more balanced evaluation of the ontological status. The other one is whether they somehow respond to Ratnakarashanti's attempt to read Yogacara philosophy into the works of Nagarjuna. I don't know whether you're aware of that, but Greg Satan in his thesis nicely elaborated that this one verse, Yah Pratikya Samutpada Sa Shunyata Prachakshmahe. So what is dependent arising, that we call Shunyata. So Ratnakarashanti says, well, dependent arising, that's Abhuta Parikalpa, that's Yantakpa Mahindra Kuntu Tokpa, and Tongpani, that's Niki Tongpa. So he reads, the Madhyanda Vibhaga verse into this verse of Nagarjuna. And Harunaga Isaacson, in one of his recent papers, showed that Yukti Shastika 34 can be interpreted in a way that Nagarjuna teaches mind only. In the second part, you have the compound Tachnyani. So in the first, the four elements are mentioned. And if you disconnect the compound, if you take Tat separate from Jnana, then it would mean, and these elements dissolve in wisdom. So and from that, Ratnakarashanti concludes that Nagarjuna teaches Chittamatra. So I wonder, whether Rendava and Gorampa were addressing this kind of explanations.
I have not seen that particular thing. However, the Paratantra, yes, I have seen they are explaining Paratantra in some different ways. When Paratantra is devoid of Parikalpita, is actually Tendam. It's the real thing. However, when Paratantra is still with the Parikalpita or maybe tainted with the Parikalpita, it's not real. So this is two aspects is mentioned everywhere like that. Of course, their explanation of the Chittamatra tradition, Chittamatra view. So this is how they explained these three characteristics. But the other one, I have not seen Gorampa, neither Gorampa nor Rendava, what Ratnakarashanti is talking about in the Nagarjuna teaching Yoga. No, I have not seen that.
So probably they simply prefer to ignore him.
Maybe that's I think maybe life is already complicated. So why put too much into it, right? I think. I think if we bring too many things into complication, it's already there, then I think we have to have some kind of classification or something like that. If everything put together, I think you will never get out of it. So I think I'm saying this because Sakya Pandita make it very, very clear in his Domsum Rabje that everything that is talking about existence, non-existence, still talking about relative truth, very precisely, no matter what, whether it's Dharmata, what terminology doesn't matter, whether it's Dharmata or whatever, Shentong or in the emptiness or Mahamadhyamika or whatever. He says, as long as we are talking about it, it is still conventional. So ultimate, the Buddha nature or Dharmata is not the object of expression. So I think based on that, then, bringing too many things into a lot of things, we are making ourselves more kind of complicated, in situation like that.
Oh, thank you very much.
I just want to make a comment. I think it's really nice presented in this way because even within one school, in this case, Sakya school, you can see the different sort of differentiated positions taken by Ngawang and Gorampa and so on. So how actually Gorampa, Ngawang was very critical, but Gorampa too, and Jorden, and so I thought Khenpo would show us like how differentiated positions there exist even within a single, let us say, in this case, Sakya school. So I thought it was really and analogous to Khenpo's presentation. I can imagine that in any given school, you would have many differentiated positions. So I just want to express my appreciation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, for example, as I said, I'm using this Gorampa's text on Domsum, but he has written this in a verse form, and of course we have to rely on commentary. And the earliest commentary that I can find is his disciples' commentary, Gongtun Wongchutu's commentary that I'm using, and also there's another commentary by one of the later, I think, the Tanakh Khenpo, Chö Namgyal. So I managed to get those manuscripts. Actually, the Tanakh Khenpo's one is later my advisor, Professor Leonard Vanderkuyp gave it to me. And the other one existed before. So again, these are the explanation of the disciples. Whether they really get the Gorampa's idea or not, it's still a question of investigation. Yeah.
You mentioned that your source for the Jonang position was the Domsum Kafong, I believe. How different is that, or is it the same as his Taoist Shinship? Because it sounded like a lot of the...
I think it's pretty much the same, but this one has more detail. The whole chapter is dedicated to refutation of the Tathāgatagarbha or the teaching of Ningpo. Not only Jonangpa, but also he has a lot of refutation of, including Shakya Chokden's position on Shentong, and also many others, the unknown Sakyapa positions on Shentong.
And how different is his reputation of Shakya Chokden from the Jonang? Because he paints the Jonang as with the Symposium Namjumba, right?
Yes. As far as I am aware, I don't really fully understand what Shakya Chokden's position on Shentong, but I know that they are different. So Shentong, as I'm just looking at, Shentong is everywhere, and everything, all the different scholars' interpretation of Shentong, understanding of Shentong is different from each other. So you cannot say one represents one kind of position represents all Shentong. Shentong is, I think, found everywhere. Of course, it became quite popular in Tibet, but I think even in India, I think Shentong existed, right? So that's why we can't just determine to say that Shentong is one position that everybody agrees to it. I think there are many different. For example, I think Dzogchen Shenga Rinpoche, he really, he's champion on Rangtong. He wanted to really refute Shentong altogether, and he did that many things. But then finally he said, when he read the Shakya Chokden's position on Shentong, he says, I couldn't refute it. So this is different, So I don't know. There are many different things. Yeah, I'm not at all. Knowledgeable of all different Shintongs, but.
It's just a small question. I was interested what you were saying about about the Chittamatra position, and I was wondering if Gorampa, Saki school generally, make a distinction between Kai Sensam and Kipte Sensam, as one does in the Lima school. Do you make that distinction?
I think in terms of this kind of presentation or the refutation, he doesn't do it. But in generally speaking, I think there are, I think the wordings are a little different. I don't remember exactly, but we do have that distinction. Yes.
Thank you very much, Khenpo. It was very valuable to have the Sakya presentation of the Jonang system. But can you summarize in just a few words what's the main, what Gorampa's main view of Buddha nature is, and what the distinction from the Jonang or Dolpopa's view is, in a few words?
Yeah, as far as I know, I think Gorampa really goes with what Rongden was saying, that the Jonangpa's really view is very high, even higher than maybe Semchampa or the mind-only school. So it's very, because knowing the Jonangpa's position or knowing its tenet well, then you have no problem getting into Madhyamika very easily. This is what he concluded. But I think Gorampa's own position for Buddha nature is, it's like similar to what other the Rangtongpas were saying, that it is the non-duality of clarity and emptiness, but just calling it Buddha nature is a potential. It's nothing there. It's not all the qualities the Buddhas are in present. It's not like that. It's potential is there. However, it's interesting thing is, but when you go through the practice, when you realize the fully blossom, the Buddha nature, then these qualities do not arise as a new. It's something it reveals, reveals to you. But until then, it is not present, or in other words, only potential is there. So this is my conclusion of his real understanding of the Buddha nature. It's just conclusion. The potential.
So it's the Seltong Yerme is the...
Yeah, Satong Sungju, Satong, yeah.
That's interesting because Himakarpo, among others, also feel that the Zumduk is very important to understand, whether it's Tongpani, Tenral Yerme.
Yeah. Beginning of his chapter on this Buddha nature, I think he says Shila, right? As for the basis or the foundation, Shila tumde kebaraji semjung sangme sabionda namshik tuki kebaraso dobara yode dujechir. Dirni, now he's talking about Dirni means here, what I'm going to present. Dirni chamgun ludupki. So he's bringing Maitreya and Nagarjuna together here as the same. Dirni chamgun ludupki. Salwa, clarity. Yunchakwa meaning continuing. Salwa yunchak, magaba, unceasing. Tashi tumte tongpai. So the free from all four extremes or elaborations. Sungju, and then there, Dumachelashe, is the problematic word for that is finally he's a Dumache, unconditioned, right? But that's again interpreted, it's not really unconditioned in the sense of unchanging, the permanent thing. It means it means it's not kind of generated new, that kind of thing. So it's a little bit difficult there. Sungju Dimachalashe.
I'm very sorry for having to interrupt you guys. We're running out of time.
Yeah, that's fine. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.